Hey everyone, Seth Harris here with Harris Home Improvement. Here for another home improvement video. On this case, we're going to be talking about painting trim. But the walls, as you can see, have not yet been painted, okay? If you have the opportunity to, you definitely want to paint your trim before you paint your walls. It's a lot easier that way because it's much easier to cut your walls in against the trim than it is to cut your trim in against the wall and get a straight line. So any opportunity you have that you can paint trim before walls, take it. Now in essence, sorry my face isn't in the camera, but in essence, typically if you have like regular trim boards here, like Alexandria molding or clamshell, you're going to want to do the sides first, then the other side, and then the face, because it's a lot easier to do your finish strokes on the face without affecting your sides than it is to your finish strokes on the sides without affecting the face. And essentially what you're going to do is you're going to work one side, the other side, and then the face, all in one line, and then you're going to move up and you're going to do the side, the face, right? And you're going to keep doing that all the way around until you finish your trim. The reason for that is because trim paint tends to dry relatively quickly. And so what happens if you paint just one side all the way around and then another side all the way around and then do your face, you end up getting these lines of paint that dry on the face, and then you end up being able to see that even after you put your second coat on because it just lays right over the top of that. And then you have this ugly line on the face of your trim. And you don't want to have that. Same thing if you did your face all the way around and then did your sides, you'd have a line on the side of your trim. And again, that would be just as ugly. So you want to go all the way around your trim as you work all the way along your trim. Okay? So we're going to start on the face of this trim because this is beaded trim. And it's really difficult to get the paint inside these beads without affecting the sides. So in this case, we're going to start with the face, getting paint in the beads, then we're going to do the sides, and then we're just going to do a final finish strokes over the face before we move on. That way everything looks nice like it's supposed to. All right. And by the way, before I get started, you want to have typically about an inch of paint on your brush, and you want to push it in to the bristles like so. That way the paint is actually inside the brush and it's not like dripping off your brush, right? This is called a wet brush. And then if you take this and then just wipe it off like so, you still have the paint inside your bristles, but you don't have it outside your bristles, and that's called a dry brush. Okay, so we're going to be starting with a wet brush here. And I'm going to try and get into these beads here. So basically I'm going to take my wet brush and I'm going to push that paint right into these beads. Right? And then I kind of have to work it in with the tip of my bristles here. All right? And then I have to dry my brush, including the inside. I don't know, yeah, I think you saw that. Inside of the brush, you just go like this to dry off the inside. And then I'm gonna stick the tip of my bristles right in there and then just drag down, keeping the pressure on the tip of the bristles. So that way, as I even the paint out within there, I'm also lifting paint back out and putting it in the brush, so I'm not leaving too much paint in there and there's less risk of it dripping on me later. Alright, so now I'm going to get this bead. I only want to go as high as my last stroke, so I'm not going to go as far as the paint will let me. And for good measure, I'll just finish off the face of the trim here. Fortunately, I'm working with a subfloor in this particular case, so I don't have to have drops down or anything like that. I don't have to worry about being real clean at the bottom. But I have other circumstances where you have to be clean, so I'll show you. All right, so same thing. Get the tip of my bristles in there after drying my brush off. Remove that excess paint. One more time for good measure. Okay, and then I'm just gonna do my finish strokes, which is with a flat brush, right? This is, I don't know what to call this, but I call this, when you use your brush like this, I call that a vertical stroke. And then a flat brush is like this. You just put the brush flat against the surface. And you draw out your finish strokes, nice straight, smooth lines, right? That way it looks good, no warbliness. Warbliness looks terrible. And you want to do that with every coat of paint, right? A lot of painters that call themselves professionals, for some reason, they'll, just throw paint on for the first couple coats, the prime coat and the first coat of paint, and then they'll make it all warbly, and then they'll do nice finish strokes for the final coat of paint, but then the paint dries to the same warbly texture that you created with your first coats, and you still see it, right? And it looks terrible. So you want to do nice finish strokes with every single coat of paint, including priming. All right, now for this, I need to cut clean against this baseboard. I don't want to get paint on there. So first I'm going to draw my line up and then draw it back down, right? Get the paint off the brush. And now I can stick the tip of my bristles in here and draw my paint across the side. And then just kind of use the tip of my brush to do some finish strokes. I'm going to dry my brush off because there's too much paint on it still. And now I can do my finish strokes here. Okay. Now I'm going to move around to the other side. Okay. All right. And I'm going to paint up this side. Looks like we got a little holiday there from yesterday. Again, it's nice, I don't have to worry about the subfloor here. You see how these finish strokes, or these, when I paint on this edge, my paintbrush goes on and I get that nasty little line there. That's why I want to do finish strokes on my face last, right? Now before I get there though, I have one more thing to paint. I'm going to want a dry brush for this one. So I'm going to wipe this excess paint off. And then for this edge here, I'm just going over the face, I'm not going on this edge, because if I happen to get paint on this edge, it's real easy to just clean off and get a nice finish look. So I'm going to get my paint here. All right. Finish strokes. There we go. And just in case, yeah, I had a little bit of paint on there. All right, and then finish off the face. All right, and you need to do this procedure rather quickly because, again, trim paint dries pretty fast. All right, so now I'll continue on with this face. Always starting on the same place you started first last time. Work the paint in, dry the brush off, jam the tip of your bristles in there, work it down. I have a nail right here, so I'm going to have to get around that nail. Alright, and you want to do that with a dry brush so you don't end up leaving too much paint in there so it doesn't drip on you later. And even then you still want to check back over that area every once in a while to make sure it's really not dripping on you. Drips are detrimental on trim. Well, they're detrimental in any case. just get my paint there. Alright, and then always do your finish strokes right back into your previous work. That way it fades and feathers right out into the previous work and it looks like one long stroke rather than a bunch of stuttered strokes. Get this side. Maybe tilt the camera up a little bit so you can get a better view. Get this side. Hopefully I'm not in the way of what I'm showing you. Can't look at the camera and the work at the same time. Alright. Dry brush for this one. Alright. Finish that off. Finish that off. Alright, and then finish strokes on the face. Make sure everything is nice and smooth. Going back into your previous work. And see, if I start like midway and you see it kind of leaves that edge there where the brush touched, that's why you always want to finish back into your previous work. So you don't get that. It looks like one nice smooth stroke. All right. And so that's pretty much the main basics of painting trim. Now when you're doing your final finish strokes on a corner like this, you want to make sure your lines are correct right at the 45-degree angle. So I'm going to put my brush right up against that 45-degree angle and then just draw it straight out. And that's essentially what you want it to end up looking like when you're done. All nice and straight lines like that. By the way, it should only take about a half an hour per door casing per side of the door casing in order to finish painting it from start to finish. 1/2 an hour, that's all it should take. Doesn't matter how large the door casing is. Complexity matters, but a typical door case that has, one side, another side, and a top, doesn't really matter how large it is. It should only take about a half an hour to paint it from start to finish.